So on this week's show, we have a very special guest, filmmaker Denny Tedesco. His dad, Tommy Tedesco, is the most recorded guitar player in history. He played on some 35,000 recordings throughout the 60s and 70s. He was making music history. In 1995, when his dad was diagnosed with cancer, Denny decided to point a camera at him and record some things about his life for posterity. That turned into an 18-year journey making the documentary film called The Wrecking Crew, which you ought to just see. It's a magnificent movie. And after 18 years of making the film and slogging it around from city to city to raise funds to keep making the film and pay for the rights to the music, there's over 100 songs in the picture. Denny has finally inked a deal for a wide release by Magnolia Pictures. Their ability to bring a great documentary to a wide audience is tremendous, and it's a big deal for Denny and for those of us who have seen the movie throughout this journey. Now, Denny began showing the movie at film festivals and in fundraisers over the last several years, and as the film has taken shape, it's evolved slowly with the addition of new material, new footage, and I've seen the movie 5 times. And in that time span, I've been fortunate enough to become friends with Denny and his sister Des and his mom Carmi, and they're just terrific. I can't speak highly enough of each one of them. So Pete and I sat down with Denny during the very last pre-distribution screening of the Wrecking Crew film, and here's our conversation. This week's podcast on the Break It Down show, we have filmmaker Denny Tedesco in the house.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, man.
I hear he's a really cool guy.
I've heard that myself.
Oh, wait, that's me.
Yeah.
I feel like NPR ladies.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's talking real quiet.
Sweaty balls.
Sweaty balls.
I love that. That's awesome.
Oh, that's perfect.
Oh.
Hey, I'm Denny Tedesco. I'm the filmmaker. No, see it?
We're keeping that, too.
Exactly.
That's good, right?
Cool jazz.
Yeah.
Rock
right.
and roll. All right. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
This is the Break It Down show, and our special guest this week is filmmaker Denny Tedesco. How you doing, man?
I'm very cool. Thank you. It's awesome being here today.
Thanks, man. The pleasure is ours.
This is our last screening, our last public screening of this.
Holy shit.
Do you feel the weight off your shoulders yet?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't think that weight will ever go away. That's why I keep eating.
Right.
Just make sure it feels like I'm. No, I don't know. You know what? After 18 years of this film, I know it was coming, but I still always feel like there's something behind. I always feel like, oh, what's going to hit me?
Well, your dad gave you quite the burden. He said, tell my story. And you said, okay.
He did. That was the thing. I was like, he didn't understand why I wanted to tell the story.
Oh.
Interesting.
I think he was more practical than I was. When I was doing like a rock video in the 80s, late 80s, I was working on rock videos, and I wanted to direct like all of us. We always want to direct and produce or whatever. And I went to him and I said, listen, you got a new album coming out. Let's do a jazz video, because we could play it on VH1 at the time. They had a jazz video part of the side of the station.
Yep.
And he was trying to convince me to do it on some rock, do it on a rock act. You don't want to do it on me. And he's trying to be practical. He knew what, it's jazz doesn't sell, son. So
And
He's certainly been around the block to know.
Yeah. I mean, he was, he made more money playing, like you said, more money playing rock and roll than he ever played making jazz.
Jazz, yeah.
So.
But at the time, there was a place for it. There was a VH1, and you could tune in VH1 and catch Kenny G or Najee or somebody like that.
Yeah, I mean, I learned quick in the business and growing up in the business. I didn't really grow up. My dad kept his business at work, so I didn't really understand what the business was until much later. I knew Dad just went to work and that was it.
He went to work just like all the other dads.
Yeah, he didn't. The tools in his car was a 6-string acoustic and maybe a 12-string and a banjo and a mandolin, electric and a Telecaster amp. That was it.
But it was just like anybody else going to work with tools in the trunk.
Yeah, instead of the hammer or saw, that's what he had.
Did you find that you got to know your dad better after he was gone by making the movie?
I think so. I mean, we had a great relationship, my father, in a lot of ways. I mean, we were the biggest fans of each other, but we were also really critical of each other, which was kind of messed up.
Huh.
And when I say, you know what I mean, we could wind each other up pretty well, like a father-son.
Sure.
He knew how to push those buttons. But when he got cancer, I think that all stopped. You know, it was like, okay, put that behind us.
Suddenly it creates a sense of what's really important.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually, what's really not important.
And what's really not important.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's certain things. It's funny. It's like when you go away. I always remember living in England in '84. I was living over there for a few months, and I just remember hearing about all this bunch of crap that was going on at home, you know, with family issues or whatever with other people. And I went, wow, that doesn't affect me. It's like you know, I would like walked away from it. It had nothing to do with me.
Just normal household family crap.
Yeah, just, you know, it's like losing your keys. Who cares? You know what I
Right.
mean? But it was serious to them,
Yeah.
whatever was going on, and there was stuff. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't deal with it, so I kind of like stepped away from it. So that's what I mean. It's like when you find out what's really means something versus what, you know.
Yeah. So let's go back to your directing rock videos. So you went to
Directing. Did you put a plural on that?
Video.
I did.
Video.
There wasn't. You did a rock video.
No, I worked in rock videos as a technician.
I see.
And then when I wanted to, you know, I was a grip and I was electrical, and you know, I had a place. I lived on Hollywood and Vine. It was we had a loft.
You lived on Hollywood and
I
Vine.
literally lived on Hollywood and Vine.
Wow.
We had a loft in behind the Broadway building, and
Just that address gets you laid constantly, does it?
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah, okay.
I can say that. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
We had a loft, and it was literally, it was the worst time in Hollywood. I mean, '80s to be there, but we were doing a lot of rock videos. We did like Robbie Neville's video. We did Ramone's video there. We did a lot of videos there.
Robbie Neville's video, C'est La Vie.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
It
that was a
great.
good video.
It won a big award that year.
Yeah.
It was like, I think one of our big ones.
Uh-huh.
But we had fun. We had, you know, we were all young filmmakers.
But it was a bad time to be in Hollywood. But there you
Well,
are.
it's
You're
big-
making good videos. You live on
Yeah,
Hollywood and Vine.
it was when I say bad time to live there.
To live there.
I mean, it was. I'm sure my parents were panicked. They were panicked.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like the worst of, you know, streets there.
Yeah.
But now it's like it's Disneyland. It's wonderful. You know, you can
Right.
walk down the streets, wonderful restaurants, wonderful this.
Cleaned up and gentrified.
Oh, very much. I mean, I remember one time going. I lived it was at a dead end alleyway, and the cool part was I always remember this it was an October night, going to the bar across the street. When I say walked at the end of the alleyway, and I walk out on Divine, across the street there was a bar called the Firefly, and was there since the 30s or 40s. Well, it got out of hand, this place, because the bartenders, if they weren't dealing in coke or other drugs, they were lighting the bar on fire. It was literally, they would put like lighter fluid in the bar well.
When do we get to the spot where it's not cool to live there?
Yeah, exactly.
So far, you getting laid a lot.
Yeah.
And you got
Good
bartenders
point.
lighting the bar on fire.
And he would basically,
Coke
this
all the
guy
time.
would go, the crowd would go, you know, he would literally light the one end of the bar and would, you know, all the way
It'd
down.
run
And
down the
that
bar.
was called the Firefly, this place.
Okay.
You know, it got closed down. Finally, the fire department put an end to that.
They don't like open flames uncontrolled on.
I guess
It's a
not.
good thing they didn't name the place the Fire Crotch in the
Yeah.
1930s.
That's why Coyote
Do you
Ugly
remember?
is so great.
Do you remember David and David? There was a group called David and David.
I don't recall that.
It's in the '80s. They did a song called "The Firefly."
And it was about that place.
Yeah,
Okay.
Nice.
look it up, folks. It's fun.
Yeah.
David and David.
Where it's basically is telling a story about living there is like, which is true. It's like everybody thinks they're somebody.
Sure.
You know, we all think we're somebody in that bar.
Uh-huh.
You know, what I was saying is living there was really cool. But I remember going home one day, and at the end of the alleyway, my steps went up right to the door, and there's a bum, a homeless guy. He's old, and he's just taking a dump off the
stairs.
off the side of the stairs. And think,
Thank you.
okay, that's good.
All right.
And
I was meaning to redecorate that
Yeah.
spot.
yeah, so I walked up to him and I said, "Hello." He said, "Hello," and
Hello.
he starts going.
He
starts
starts into
talking.
his spiel.
Yeah, but his spiel was like, oh my God, this guy's got something to say. He starts talking about the Queen of England and the King of England that stepped down in the 30s and and he starts going off on
Meanwhile, his ass is hanging
yeah,
off
exactly.
of your porch. He's got a
Exactly.
deuce dripping out of him.
And then he starts going off on talking about Castro, how Castro, his daughter went to Hollywood High School and this and that. And now I'm thinking the guy's nuts.
Yeah.
And Castro was an extra in some movies. And then I'm wondering, is like, maybe he's right.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
there was some stuff that, and it came up later that what he said wasn't that far off.
Wow.
Right.
And I was like, wow. So
Wow.
The
he
deuce-
moved.
the
He moved
deuce
in.
sayer.
By the way, we became roommates. No,
You give him a more permanent place.
well, he was better than my other roommate. So
Wow.
Well,
So, as much as I really want to delve further into that topic,
yeah,
the
yeah. What are we talking about?
well, we were talking about you making music videos.
Oh,
You
right.
were
So
gripping at the
basically, I was gripping, and that was our way of getting in the '80s. What was really interesting in Hollywood and in the industry when MTV came along, it gave us the technicians and the filmmakers an opportunity to do something that
time
wasn't
to do
around.
work. Yeah.
right.
Dancers were. My God, dancers were getting jobs.
Right.
There were no dancers at that point. Don't forget, we didn't have those shows like Shindig and all those other shows in the 60s where a lot of dancers.
Right.
So dancers being hired. I'm getting hired as grips. We're all getting hired as whatever. Friends are DPs and stuff.
Yeah.
So the guys that were doing commercials wouldn't be doing this stuff because it was lower budget. It's almost like the Wrecking Crew in a lot of ways. They weren't doing, so they wouldn't do that stuff. It was, lower budget.
It was beneath their occupational station. So to
Well,
speak.
they didn't need to do it.
Yeah.
Why work? We were
Right.
working. I remember doing flat fees and were ridiculous, stupid things. I
Wow.
remember July 3rd doing a DeBarge video. I can remember the day because July 3rd and came home on July 4th.
Right.
The same time I
Wow.
went in. And it was a DeBarge video. And always
you
remember
worked
that.
24 hours on it,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
What was this? What was the song?
Oh, God knows. Who remembers? It was one of those things. So those days were...
I want to go back and watch that video though, and see Jerry curls and like
Yeah.
duster jackets and crazy shit, and
Yeah.
go. Denny worked 24 hours on this video.
Yeah, that's when I get cringe when I see. It's like Janet Jackson. When I see Janet Jackson, I worked on as a grip, and I remember it was Nasty Boys,
Oh, okay.
Okay.
and it was downtown, a night shoot, and I tend to have a horrible reputation of being clumsy.
Uh-huh.
So, if I remember some bum, another homeless guy. Seems like they're always around me,
Yeah.
but somebody basically fell into the light stands and knocked everything over, and they thought it was me.
Right.
Just they heard a big crash. Thought, "Oh God, where's Denny?"
Where's Denny?
Wow.
Under the
It was
lights.
not
Well,
me.
it could have been worse. It could have been, like a bum shat on the craft services table, and then somebody said, "Where's Denny?"
Yeah.
Exactly.
make-
At least I'm known for
Yeah.
clumsiness, not
Yeah.
shitting
Pooing-
all over
pooing
the
all
place.
over the food.
Yeah.
So, okay, what?
So basically, what I was doing those videos. I was a grip, but I was trying to write. I started off as a decorator. I was in art department before that. My first film was Eating Raoul, which was.
Sure.
That was
remember that?
Yeah.
Man, I loved that movie.
Did you? That was, and for those who don't know, was this very dark.
It was really dark comedy. Yeah,
dark comedy. And I didn't even know what dark comedy was at that point. I was just out of
there
high
were
school.
there were laughs and killing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And the story for
Also titties.
Yes, that was my first job with titties. I was a decorator. I didn't know what a decorator did. Basically, I got on that job because I was on a school project for AFI, working free,
Uh-huh.
as a grep. And this, unfortunately, at the time, unfortunately, that's the way it was. We were all smoking pot. So the art director was checking me out, and he thought, wow, he's really intense. He's really focused. I wasn't focused. I had nothing else. I couldn't do anything else.
You
I
were-
was just
you were
staring.
high.
I was staring into space, But
He's really focused. And
he's
his
so
eyes are very
focused.
red.
God,
Yeah.
he just works all the
That
time.
must be laser focused.
He's the laser eyes.
Laser.
And he ended up going. He recommended me to this film called Eating Raoul. He was a production designer,
Uh-huh.
and I didn't know what a set decorator was, but I pretended.
But you said, "Fuck it, I'll do it."
Yeah.
I'll do it. And the producer said when I went in, she says it pays $200 to $250 a week. I thought, awesome.
Yeah,
You
I'll really do
she's
that.
making excuses. I'm going like, yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So
Perfect for
when I went for the redo and went back to get the job, she says, "So how much do you want?" I said, "Can I get $250?" She said, "Yeah." I went, "Oh my God, I'm rich."
This is awesome.
And $250 a week, and it was good. It was 1981, whatever it was, and it was good. But I also was working 18, 20 hours a day, and I loved it.
Yeah.
Because it was your first real job. And
man, those sets too. I mean, okay, so Eating Raw, it's been many years since I've seen that movie.
Why those sets look so good is, for those who don't know it, it was about this retro couple who basically feel like they live in the 50s.
Right.
And he's a wine connoisseur, she's a nurse, but they get stuck in this building of swingers. And these swingers basically happen to come in and attack her. And all of a sudden, Paul Bartel, who's the director and the actor, comes in and sees that his wife's being attacked, and he takes a frying pan and hits him and kills him.
Hits Raul over the head.
No, hits the swinger.
Okay.
Kills the swinger. So at that point, they go, oh my God, we just killed someone. And they look through his wallet and realize he's a degenerate. He's a swinger, but he's got money. Nice. No one will miss this guy. So they keep the money, and they want to open up Paul and Mary's Cafe. I can't remember what it was called. So they decided to go on this murder spree, and they would convince swingers to come in. Raul was the handyman, this Mexican handyman, and handsome, gorgeous, guy who worked in the building, and he figures out what they're doing, and they become, whatever, they work together. And long story short,
he's in on the take.
And in the end, well, you know what? Raul tried to double cross him. So Raul's dead. And at the end, when they're making this wonderful meal for their the banker who's giving them the money for the cafe, he says, "What is this? It tastes wonderful. What is this?" And they say, "Well, it's a little Latin, little Mexican. Really, it's really good." So basically, they cooked Raul.
Yeah,
very dark.
Dark.
It was dark. It was my first exposure to dark comedy.
Well, I was the Bodies in the Bag, by the way.
Oh, were you?
Yeah,
uncredited.
Yeah. I wasn't credited for the Bodies in Bag. I'm still a little upset about that.
Do you get scale for that kind of work?
No, just hot and sweaty.
This was
you're already making $250 a week. Get in the bag.
The greatest thing was, all right, so one of these things we did was we put in, there was like, it was called, what was it, the Hollywood Press or something. It was one of those nasty magazines, free magazines.
Yeah.
Like
Alternative News Weekly or whatever.
Not even. I mean, it was just nasty, hardcore. Don't forget, this is way before internet. This is hardcore porn stuff.
I missed out on this magazine.
I know. Okay, I got copies. I'll give it to you. Yeah,
cool.
So the art director and the set decorator, it was just a 3-man art department. We decided to put an ad in the paper because they put an ad in the paper, right?
Right.
To get as a prop. It was cheaper for them to put an ad in the paper looking for couples or people to swing with this couple, and they had Paul and Mary in a whatever. Yeah, it was like an ad to pull in swing. It was the photo, so it was a fake ad, but it wasn't fake because it was cheaper to put it in as so they had a post box. So wondering if anybody was going to send in, no one ever sent anything in. But what we did was one late night we took our own picture and wrote our own letter and sent it into the mailbox. And so they
for the film you were working on,
right? And the film we're working on. So all of a sudden the producers, the producers go,
"Hey, we got something!
We got something! Oh my God!" And they sat around at lunchtime reading our letter, and we were going. Everybody had all kinds of thoughts of what kind of person this was.
Right?
Wow!
And
that's awesome.
We told them at the wrap party. So.
But they went through the whole thing. But that was the only response that you guys got?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I guess it wasn't that.
Yeah.
What can I say?
I don't know. Well, I don't know.
Yeah. It was
I'd say badly written copy.
I guess so. But, we did okay.
Because, I made a film called Premonitions. It was a terrific experience. And one of the great things that happened was it was low budget. We were going to shoot the whole thing in 9 days. And we had...
Denny has no idea what you're talking about.
No.
You're going to go this fast?
Yeah.
Man, I go 18 years to make my movies.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're doing it in 9 and we're doing it in 9 days.
What are you guys, crazy?
That's overnight.
We had a couple of scenes that involved nudity, and it wasn't gratuitous. Yes, it was.
Exactly.
And
only gratuitous if you took your pants down, right?
That's true. Okay. I was saying off.
Right.
Down's okay. Off, not so much. But the thing that we did when we were casting it was we put an ad on casting.com and we disclosed everything. Like, we're going to pay you if the movie makes money. So you're getting paid scale on contingency, and you will get a nudity bonus, and we'll close the set. But there are 2 days where there's going to be nudity. Mm. So to me, what that sounds like is we're not paying you, and you're going to have to take your clothes off for like $100.
Right.
So
is that what I'm getting tonight? Because why did you ask me to take my pants off just now?
That was just for fun.
Oh, so I'm not getting paid?
Drink your beer. Drink your beer.
Right. Just keep drinking.
Honestly, folks, I'm here with my Bud Light Lamarita.
So the ad went up on a Sunday night, and I remember the director, Sean Sergosi, and I were on the phone on Sunday night, and we're thinking, okay, I'm going to hit the submit button, and nobody's going to reply to this. Right. This is going to be terrible, But we wanted to be honest, so we disclosed everything, and we hit the send button. And then we both went to sleep, and he called me the next day at 6:15 in the morning.
So this is recent.
This is 9 years ago.
Still.
Yeah. He called me, and he said, hey, man, we got responses. And I said, what? And he said, yeah, we got responses. And I don't remember the exact number, but it was like 160.
Oh, my God.
And I looked at that page of 160 actresses who were willing to work under these circumstances. Long hours, feature in 9 days, no money up front except for a nudity bonus. And it's likely that there's full frontal. 160. And as I scrolled through these 160 actresses, there were maybe 2 where I went, not that one.
That's not bad.
That's a lot of quality.
Yeah. So there's a
market in nudity.
There's a market. Yeah.
I've heard that.
I need to work on this.
Maybe I should have done my film.
All nude.
Oh, no.
Well,
God help us. No.
Yeah.
No, there's nothing against elderly nudity, but I just know.
Oh, I thought you meant you. Like running around like, I'm making a film. No, I'm not wearing clothes.
Yeah.
I've got a dickie on.
Okay.
Boy, did we digress.
Yes.
Let's get back to your movie.
What was my movie?
You've been at it for 18 years, and
Right.
The Wrecking Crew has gone from...
All right, so Wrecking Crew is the story of the Los Angeles session musicians that were doing all the recordings for the Beach Boys, Sinatra, Mamas and Papas, the Byrds, Johnny Rivers, Elvis when he was in L.A.,
the Association, the
Monkeys,
Partridge Family.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Anything that was done in L.A. at the time usually had session musicians on there.
Did you say the Beach Boys?
The Beach Boys.
Because that's the big one for
the big
me.
one. And Phil Spector's Wall of Sound was all the same guys.
Yeah.
And the Beach Boys, what happened was they were doing their own albums at the beginning, and then...
It taken too long.
Well, you know what? What happened is Brian hooked up with Jan Barry,
Yeah.
Jan and Dean, and they did Brian's song, Surf City, I think, right? And then I could be wrong. We'll get letters.
Yeah.
Do they still do letters? Whatever.
I don't think
we'll get emails.
We'll get emails, yeah.
And then
send them. The first one's going to come from my wife because she's a huge fan of Jan and Dean.
Oh, there you go. So what happened was then Brian went to visit the recording and saw, his song being done with all these studio musicians, and Jan said, "Brian, you could do this. I mean, you just do it. So instead of your brothers and your cousin, just have them do it." So that's where it started, and Hal and Ray Pullman were the first to start doing, bass and drums with them, and then sooner or later the whole band was replaced, to have studio musicians.
Yeah.
And it made sense because Brian was writing some stuff that maybe, even if the guys could play it, even if the Beach Boys could have played it, they wouldn't have given him the
reach.
It was a reach, but I don't think they would have given him the respect that if you're seasoned
to
or
allow
paid
his artistic
exactly.
vision to
I
be
think it's like I said to someone the other day. It's like you could be God on the outside, but you go home, you're just dad, or you're just just a piece of crap.
My asshole little brother. Or
Yeah,
whatever.
you know what I mean. And it's like, so I think that's why it worked out. So these guys were,
and boy, did it work out because we ended up with things like Pet Sounds.
Yeah. I mean, Pet Sounds is inspired other great bands to be greater.
Like the Beatles.
Yeah. Like the Stones. They're all like, we want to make that album. Yeah.
Yeah. So they pushed it, and these guys were basically going, in those days, what people don't understand, there was only maybe in the mono days, there was only one track. you went into a studio. In 1960, my father's 30 years old. Hal's 31, 32. They're all seasoned studio musicians.
Right.
Well, the groups that they're playing with are maybe 18, 19. So the record companies are going, listen, we like your stuff. What we're going to do is you sing the backgrounds and we'll get the studio musicians to play it. And the reason was because they didn't have they didn't want to spend time and the money.
It was the math.
We
could stick you guys in there and let you fuddle around with it for 18
and cost
hours
us a lot of money
and come out with one song
Yeah.
that might be okay.
Right.
And we can get it done.
Exactly. And that's what they did is they put these guys in there. Glenn Campbell was one of the guys. Leon Russell was another one of the studio musicians.
Yep.
And they would go in and knock out 3 or 4 songs in 3 hours. That's what they were allowed to do. And that's how they did it. And then sooner or later, they just kept moving. They became popular. They became the guys.
Sure. So as you documented this film came from your dad.
Right. My
when
dad
he got sick.
Right. Dad was sick in 96, and I thought, I don't want this to be my biggest regret in life is not jumping on the story. I knew, Tommy Tedesco was my dad. He was a guitar player. I grew up with it, but I didn't, it's been 30 years since he was doing the rock and roll stuff. But,
right.
At 66, I wanted his story to be told. And I started it. And I put him and Hal Blaine and Carol Kay, the only woman in the group as a bass player, and Plaz Johnson, a round table. I just started filming. And I was shooting film at the time, 16 millimeter.
Terrific personalities too.
Yeah, they all, and that's the thing with musicians are like, I call it the round table without instruments. I call it the quartet without instruments.
Yeah.
Because they will one up on each other. They're like, they're musicians like the banter or play against each other and they listen and come back with a zinger.
Right.
Boom.
And they set each other up.
Yes.
And they do things like, they'll collaborate right in front of you.
Yeah. One could be telling the story and then let the other one finish.
Right. Yeah, they're too in sync to not do that.
Exactly.
They have to, yes.
And so that was kind of cool. And I would sit there and I would throw it. I knew I had 2 cameras going on the round table and I based it on Broadway Danny Rose and Diner.
Oh,
2 of my favorite movies where
Sure.
people just, they just, back and forth, overlap and,
Right.
tease each other. And all I had to do was just ask a few questions, set it up, and they go off.
Right.
And,
Light the fuse.
Yeah. And that's it. And then went on. Dad passed
Hal
away
Blaine
a year
is
later.
Hilarious.
Yeah,
Your
Hal's.
dad is hilarious.
They loved each other and teased each other.
Yeah.
And that went on to, he passed away, and I kept going trying to get this film out. No one would ever. I never had the film,
Right.
because I kept filming, but you need money to edit, and I just kept spending money on filming. And finally, in 2006, we decided let's go for it because this is 10 years later. We got to make a film. 2008, we came out with the film in festivals, did very well, but unfortunately, the music, there was so much music. Everybody said you'll never be able to pay for this,
Right.
and there were so many negative, like, no, it's not going to happen.
It just can't fly.
I was like, you know what? I just felt like I had to keep going. What am I going to do? Quit? I'd crossed the line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once I got into the film festivals and did very well, and, Elvis Costello's showing up and Peter Frampton showing up at screenings, I must be doing something right. They it.
And they not just showed up at screenings, but they liked it. And
Yeah.
They left testimonials.
Yeah. And that was the thing is like, I realized, oh my God, this is real.
This is
Right.
real.
And, we made a great film, but it's the music that, again, it's the characters. Those guys are we got lucky.
Well, the music provides a backdrop that we can all relate to.
Yes.
That's what it is.
Well, that is like, I've always said that 50% of the film is the music, meaning like you can walk in there and you will know what the film's about as soon as you hear one, Boots Were Made for Walking or Good Vibrations or Be My
Right.
Baby.
It makes you, it takes those emotional responses you get from those songs,
Yeah.
and it makes you part of that movie.
Exactly.
You feel it.
Exactly. It's like what maybe Partridge Family is for us
Right.
is not the same thing as for maybe my older brother because he's 10 years older than me, or someone that's in their 60s because that's not their song, but Good Vibrations is their song.
Right.
Yeah.
So every song has a bookmark in someone's life.
Right.
Even if it is the same song, we have a bookmark. You know what? I remember riding to school on my bike with that. You know, you remember making out with that girl or something. You know, everybody brings something different.
You're talking about positive memories too. You don't have a lot of negative songs in the movie.
No.
It's positive songs, and so you're going to draw out these positive emotions from the viewers as they hear it and think, "Oh man, that's right," which instantly makes you like the guy. Oh, these guys made the music, and it takes that suspension of that belief that you have to have, and you've given it to them by saying, "This is your music."
That's an interesting thing about positive music when you think about. I can't imagine even a negative music, which was really an interesting. You went there and were thinking, what?
It's not like this is a documentary about Morrissey songs.
Yeah,
you know. Yeah, there's no.
Actually,
guy is the
you said that
hero
a friend of mine
all
actually
Morrissey
did
songs.
that.
Yeah,
he went on tour with him. It was so sad because in the end, Morrissey wouldn't let him release it.
Wow,
which is such a dick move.
That is a dick move.
Come on, you know. Yeah. You'd spend all this time, months, and I hate that.
Yeah, that sucks.
So,
well, here's what I'm going to say because I'm going to tell the story about how whenever I happen to be around, and you know, I make myself a hanger-on around you as much as I can. Whenever you come to town, I go, "Hey, Denny, I'm going to
is that you?
And see what you
so you hanging on? Wow.
The and tonight, one of the ladies. One of the hot chicks who was hanging out with your sister asked, "Well, how do you know the Tedescos?" And here's how I know the Tedescos. Years and years ago, I was probably, 17 or 18 years old, playing the drums. And I met this guy. His name was Bill. He was a windsurfer. He was just like an old character. You know, he would windsurf with a cowboy hat on or something. And he was just a cool dude. So he said, "Yeah, man, so you play the drums, huh?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "What do you think about Hal Blaine?" And I said, "Who?" And he said, "You ought to be ashamed of yourself.
Oh, that's so funny.
You fucking whippersnapper." And he gave me a copy of the book. And he said, "Read this." And I said, "Oh, huh." And he went, "I'm not kidding. Take this home and read it." So I took it home and I started reading it. And I stayed up for 3 days. And just read the book, and I'd nod off, and I'd wake up. This was, I was young and didn't have a job or anything, so I just read that book all the way through, and I was mesmerized. So, fast forward many years later, and I was in it was probably around 2011, maybe 2010, 2011. I was getting my hair cut, and I was sitting there in the place, and next to me there was some conversation going on with somebody who kept saying the Wrecking Crew. And so I just, like the guy who was, it was your sister, and the guy who was cutting her hair, turned around to go get shampoo or something, left your sister there for a second. So I said, I don't want to butt in or anything, but I do, because you're talking about the Wrecking Crew. And she said to me, "Oh, it's not what you're thinking of. You're thinking of the Wrestlers." And I was like, I don't know anything about wrestlers, but I'm talking about Hal Blaine and Tommy Tedesco. And she went, "Holy shit, you know who the Wrecking Crew is?" And I said, "Yeah, I know who the Wrecking Crew is. Come on, who doesn't?"
That's
and
funny.
She said, "No, Tommy Tedesco is my dad."
I remember, and she called home and said, "I met a guy that for the barbers." It's like,
yeah,
it's so funny.
So she said, "Well, you know what? You ought to meet my brother because he's making the film." She told me about the film and how you had kind of been underway. And so she gave me her email address.
All right.
And I sent you an email. And I said, "Hey," I think the subject line was, "Fuck, really? You're making a movie?"
And I thought, "Oh, God, I know that subject line."
Yeah. So, and you replied like, "Yeah, I'll let you know when I'm coming up there." And then eventually there was a screening in Santa Cruz.
Right.
And so, in addition to wanting to see the movie, we'll take any excuse to go to Santa Cruz. And took my wife and my son down there.
I forgot about that one.
Yeah.
God, that's so long ago.
So I don't know when that was, but that was the first time I saw the film.
It was Don Randy was with me, right?
Yes, he was.
It was in that little studio.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
It was it was at UC Santa Cruz, and it was a little.
Was it UC Santa Cruz?
I think so.
I can't remember.
I keep making noise on this table.
That's right. Not me. Yeah, basically what happened at that point was that was the only way, when everybody kept saying, "You're never going to get this film out."
Yeah.
The only thing I could do was beg for money. And, I had to come up with a way of donating money. I wanted to get sponsors involved. And someone said, well, why don't you get a fiscal sponsor? What do you mean? I said, someone that'll take the money as a donation, nonprofit. They'll take the money, they'll give you the money. So then I had to think, all right, how's that going to work? So then I went doing song dedications. And that started something where people dedicate a song for $1,000. You get your name up on the wall. Basically, you put it up on the website, and the DVD, it'll be all there. And that's what we end up doing. So then I created levels of donations. You know, you're a groupie if you're under 100. You're a roadie if you're over 100. I can't remember 5,000. It went from 300. I can't remember what you were. 500, you were this, and executive producer, at 50,000. So,
wow. And I saw that Herb Alpert and Jerry Moss were executive producers.
Yeah.
They bought in.
And they didn't even know. I had to actually call them recently and said, you guys okay if I put your names up? If it helps you, go for it. So great. Which is really cool.
That is really cool.
Because they don't usually do that, even though Herb's known for giving his money but they don't give money to the films or anything like that.
Yeah.
His foundation, and people would say, well, why doesn't so-and-so give you money? Just because they're in my film doesn't mean they might have the money, but they don't know that the struggle is.
Sure.
They're just my interviewers, or my interviewees or whatever, you can't go back.
They were kind enough to be the subject
Exactly.
matter.
So I can't go back to Cher and say, hey, Cher, do you mind giving me 10 grand? It's kind of like, that's why it's taken me so long. Maybe because I didn't have the balls to go after her sometimes, but I'm glad the way it went.
How do you get Cher?
Cher was an interesting situation. Cher, I worked with in rock videos, actually. In 1988, I worked with her in one of her, reincarnations.
Right.
And we did a video, and I remember standing next to her and talking to her. I said, Cher, my dad worked with you with the Spectre days. She goes, she's very businesslike. She's very straight, very,
and very smart.
Very smart. And doesn't mess up, there's nothing about Cher that's soft. When it's like very business down to earth.
Right.
Down to earth when and she said, who's your dad? Just like very... I said, Tommy Tedesco. And she went, Tommy and Billy and, Hal, and went off on it.
Yeah.
So I
softened her up.
Softened her up. So this is before I was doing a video. So I knew there was a chance that Cher would react if she was given that chance. And so then I went to, years later, I knew her agent. And I talked to her and I said, would you ask Cher if she would do this? Now, I think her agent only asked because it was us, my wife and I.
Right.
Not because, and I don't think she ever thought Cher would say yes. But Cher did say yes. And when she called back, Cher said yes. And you could hear it in her voice like, oh my God, she said yes.
Surprised.
Yeah.
But I knew there was a chance because no one knew this part of Cher. This is not Cher, the singer, the star of the 70s,
right,
80s.
The huge...
This is Cher as a backup singer for the Ronettes when she's 16, and she's really not supposed to be there because she's Sonny's girlfriend,
Right.
And can you imagine? Underage?
Yeah.
Yeah, Sonny this,
Hell, only R. Kelly gets away with that nowadays.
Yeah.
Yeah, just barely.
Barely. And so, that kind of like, so I knew, and so when I went in and I was able to, they finally called and said, you can come in. At this point, Cher was doing a bunch of press, and I had 10 minutes. Basically, it was fit in between like Barbara Walters and People magazine or something in one day.
Wow.
She killed in those 10 minutes.
She killed in those 10 minutes.
Absolutely.
Because, man,
she nailed
you got
it.
Quite a bit of footage.
Nailed it. I mean, I had 10 minutes, one roll of film. And I remember her assistant going, all right, that's enough. And I just ignored and just kept asking questions and,
Wow.
But it was good. So Cher was easy. The hard one was like getting Brian Wilson, getting him there. And finally getting Brian after 8 years,
It took you 8 years to get Brian Wilson.
Yeah. You don't know who you call. Or you call, you get shot down. You know, the people that shot me down, which I'm grateful now that they said no, but upset at the time, was Tom Petty's people, Bonnie Raitt. I was trying to get their Max Weinberg. These people know who these people were. They could have said something.
Yeah.
And that's why I went for them, but they didn't. They said, nope. nothing to say. I said, okay, that's fine. In the end, I'm glad.
Yeah.
Because they don't fit in the film. That's one thing I like about the film. I didn't have to go outside. The people that are talking about these people knew these people.
Everybody does fit.
Yeah.
I mean, you can
I
tell
have Dick
that.
Clark in there, and the only reason Dick Clark was in there, when my dad passed away, Dick Clark did a obituary on his radio show.
Oh, right. Okay.
So I thought, so I thanked Dick Clark. I sent him a letter thanking him. And by the way, I have this, movie I'm trying to do. Would you be interested in, being interviewed? And he wrote a nice letter back, typed, and said, unfortunately, I really don't know any of these guys. I never met them in person. I really wouldn't have much to say, but blah, blah, blah. They're wonderful people. Good luck. And then at the bottom of the page, he wrote in, give me a call. I just looked at your 10-minute piece or 14-minute piece, and you could talk me through it. Great. Because I didn't need Dick Clark to know them. I needed Dick Clark to be the
spokesperson
the
for the
spokesperson,
American
exactly.
music
Exactly.
consumer. And that's what he was. I mean,
Yeah.
if anybody knew that, if anybody knows American music, who knows American music better than the creator of American Bandstand?
Yeah.
So for him to say what he said, it was perfect.
Yeah.
Because he didn't have to.
I didn't need
speak
to.
from
I
the standpoint.
wasn't asking him to talk about. I needed more of a historical point of view.
Right.
And
he
that's
was
what I got.
sort of speaking for the audience.
Yeah, exactly.
So when you got Dick Clark, I know you went into this project to record your dad for posterity. You just happened to get a lot of people for posterity.
Well,
though.
I knew it wasn't. I knew I had to get. I knew I needed. I tried to get Herb Alpert for years, never could get to him.
Yeah.
And then finally, when I get to Lou Adler, someone got me to Lou, and Lou said, "Why don't I try to get Herb with me?" I said, "Well, I've been trying to get Herb forever." I said, "Well, Herb told me about this." "Oh, great. He told you about it. Why didn't he call me?" It's like, oh, come on. So that worked out, the two of them together. And then, like I said, Brian was Jimmy Webb. Jimmy was great. Jimmy was the best interview because he was like so articulate.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man.
You put his tape, 60-minute tape, into a edit bin or edit bay, and just pick a number between 0 and 60. It can be in there. That's how good it is.
Every second.
Every second.
Yeah, he's terrific. I really enjoyed Carol Kay too.
Mm-hmm.
Man.
You have to enjoy her.
Yeah.
She's so unique and compelling.
And then the point that Nancy Sinatra made too about when she was, it's okay if I do what these boots are made for walking. It's not weird and creepy and abusive.
Right. But Lee Hazelwood was who wrote it,
Right.
did it for himself.
Yeah. And that was not going to go over the same way.
No.
There was not the least bit cute. And the way that you cut from her saying that to the video.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, right.
Oh, man.
Very good.
That was great.
Yeah.
You know that we're all into the historical markers in our own emotion about the music, but the compelling characters in this film are really what does it.
Mm.
And like I said, the first time I watched the movie was in Santa Cruz. That was many years ago. And I've seen the film as it evolved and I really saw it from polished to very polished.
Yeah.
So I didn't see
when you
the
think
early
it
cuts.
was, when I always thought it was finished, and then it got something else happened. I was like, oh, I could do that.
Right.
I could put Al Jardine and Peter Tork in because we did the Mill Valley Film Festival. They played at the party afterwards, so I quickly did an interview with those two. And so when when I had to
I'm
go
glad
in,
you did.
Yeah. So it helped me. Things came up, but my editor also said to me, "You got to stop interviewing people because we can't put everybody in." She was right. You can't do all these interviews and expect 5 seconds, 10 seconds, and fall in love with a character.
Right.
So I said, "Well, that's why God gave us DVDs." And I'm hoping that God doesn't take them away.
Yeah. Yes, I want the Wrecking Crew box set.
Yeah.
With how many hours of footage do you have?
Oh, hundreds. I don't even know.
Hundreds.
I've never counted.
You could make a whole new movie out of what you have.
Shut up.
Yeah, right. Hey, what are you doing for the next 18 years?
Put the gun down. I was just kidding.
Really, for those of us who
have
fallen in love with the story and the characters,
but the thing is,
got a lot for the DVDs.
I'm hoping that, somewhere down the line, people will, go in schools, whatever. Look these people up. Hear a story.
Yeah.
Because it relates to today. How they related to their work. My two favorite lines in the movie, which have nothing to do with music. When I asked Bones how, I said, Bones, he was a great engineer, but a great producer, and he did all the Mamas and Papas stuff as an engineer. And then he produced Tom Waits, and he produced Fifth Dimension, and so much stuff. I said, what is it like when you're at the top of the world? You're the A team. You are the guys. And then you're not. How does that affect you? And he says, it's like athletes. You got your minor leagues, you got your majors, and you got your, ramp down. It's not about staying at the top. It's taking that ramp down as long as possible. And then one of the interviews I did with Mark Maron, that interview I did, we talked about it, and he gave me the word that made sense to me, is relevant. We all want to be relevant.
Yeah.
And it's true. We're all in that situation. We want to be relevant. That's why I'm doing the movie. That's why you're doing the podcast.
Right.
There's something about why do we want to do it? I think we want to be relevant. We want to give something. We want to feel something.
And we want it to matter.
Yeah, absolutely. And so in your later years, these guys just, my dad, when he was 60 years old, he was playing his guitar better than any time he ever played. But he wasn't working that much. He get called for, I think the last movies he did, Schindler's List and Godfather 3, which is unfortunate. Amazing. It was Godfather 3.
Right, yeah.
We all had high expectations on Godfather 3. Damn it all.
Yeah, now Sofia Coppola
I like
makes good
Sofia
movies.
Coppola, yeah. But, when you mention that, it's a matter of the players and their individual journeys, and they all were different. But your dad, when he was 60, he wasn't getting called to work as much, but guitar players all over the world still loved your dad and wanted to hear from him.
He loved doing what he did. He loved doing the seminars. He loved, he loved playing. He loved playing live when he could. But when the stroke happened, though, he had a stroke 2 years later, and that basically ended his career.
Right.
And like at the end of the film, I say, and he said to me just a few months before he passed, he said, the stroke came at the right time of his life.
Yeah.
He had an excuse why he can't play.
Right.
Versus, well, I'm just not busy.
Right.
I can't play because I can't.
Because nobody's calling me.
Yeah, exactly. That's worse than having a stroke is better.
Right.
He had no control over it. And,
wow.
But it was a drag because at 60 years old, I know if you could turn back time, that's a Cher song, isn't it?
Yeah.
I wish there were producers at the time. I wish they would have taken him. I wish, just taken him like, hey, let's do the Muzak thing or the smooth jazz thing. Let's create something here.
Right.
Because he could play like a mother.
Yeah.
He was phenomenal, and he had such,
And his dexterity at age 60 was better than it ever had been.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was weird.
His voice, his playing voice.
Yeah, exactly.
Was more seasoned.
Yeah.
He just had more
He
to
knew
say.
when to come in and when to go out. I recently found out when making this film, when he played with Ray Charles, there's a song that he plays, and I put it at the end of the film. It's called, it's the Kermit song. It's Not Easy Being Green.
Not Easy Being Green, yeah.
And it's Ray Charles playing, singing, and my father playing behind him. And I only recently found out how that came about was Ray's there, obviously, and he's playing, and my father starts on his own to come in. He's not doing what he's supposed to be doing.
Uh-huh.
But Ray goes, "Hey, what's that? That sounds great. Keep it going."
Yeah.
My father knows when to go in and come out.
Right.
If he knows he's seasoned enough to take that chance. What's he going to do? Say no. So he doesn't. He won't do it.
Right.
But he knew to take a chance and see what. And that whole section was supposed to be a string section. Instead, it became an acoustic guitar section.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So he created something there on his own.
Wow, that is something.
And that's not a voice a 20-year-old has.
No,
you've got to
because
have the
that
ears.
guy that's 20 might not know to try that, or
Right.
might not feel that, like might be too scared to do it.
Right. It's right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like actors when you work with actors and comedians, or when I work with them, you could see the guys that go, "Oh, that's why he's that."
Right.
like a Steve Carell or a Steve Colbert. And there's another guy I worked with named Paul Greenberg. And I remember him. We were doing some promos for comedy game show network, and it was like this guy was like, he just kept coming at us with improv, just kept never stopping. It was then became a challenge for this guy to keep it going. You know what I mean? That's where you go, these guys have it.
Right. And have polished it.
Mm-hmm.
Because the thing is, that's Ray Charles.
Yeah.
You know, he's been at it so long, and he's so tuned into something that he's been focused on for all of those years. And then here comes your dad, who really is one of the few people on the planet who was his peer.
Yeah, right.
Who could step in with the courtesy of that.
They have mutual respect for each other.
Right.
There was a great story at that. It must have been that session. It was a cash date, so it wasn't a contract, union contract. So it was cash date, and at the end, my father goes to get his, cash, whatever it was, might have, let's say $500 or whatever, and Ray goes, "What?" And he said, "Ray, you said it was cash." "Yeah, but I don't have that money." He said, "What am I going to give to the robbers if they rob me?" He was like $50 short or something. He said, "All right, fine, keep the 50. Give him something or something." It was like, oh my God.
Wow.
It's just so funny.
That's incredible too. To be able, so Ray has something in his head that he wants. Your dad's able to come in a musical conversation and show him instantly, and Ray knows what's crap and what's not crap.
Right.
He goes,
right.
"Ooh, that's
well." The great example, John Williams said, he was honoring my father, and John Williams said it. He said, "Listen, as composers, we write something, and we only can hope that we will get 70, 80% of what we wrote on tape. But then there's guys like Tommy and these guys that come in and give you 110%.
Right.
Because what they're doing is they're looking at the music, they're feeling, they're understanding it, and they're going to give more than, again, it's experience. It takes seasoned professionals to do that. They're out there. But that's why there's so few of them, because they're the guys you go to.
right."
Sure.
When he used to talk about, my father used to do these seminars, and he would do these like pieces of, he would show, okay, here's a John Williams piece. Someone would say, well, the other thing was, I'm all over the place now. Someone would say, what would he want to be remembered for? It would probably be his film work, because when he's working with a John Williams or James Horner or, a Henry Mancini or Goldsmith, when James Horner or they're calling him, say, keep 2 weeks in the month of April, the first month of, 2 weeks of April open, because I got this film and it's going to be guitar driven. When you made it, because, that's 6 months or 4 months, whatever it is. He's calling you out, say, don't take work those 2 weeks.
Right.
Because he's writing for you.
I need you.
And they know what he needs.
There's
Right.
a film
He needs that work.
And
that
that's
is driven by the guitar.
exactly.
And I know exactly whose guitar we need.
Yeah, exactly.
This is one of those things where they have the checkbook to go get
Anyone.
exactly what they want.
Exactly. You're right. I never thought of it like that. And the thing is, listen, all the rock dates he did with our Beach Boys or Marquettes or whatever those songs were, anybody could have done that. Do you know what I mean? There were 10, 12 guitar players that could have done that, but there's only one Tommy Tedesco that did that thing with John Williams that day. And maybe there's one other guy in town at that point, but they want him, and that's very special in your life.
And they want those last 30%.
Yes,
because he's got it,
There was a great line that when James Horner did Cocoon, and he did Cocoon 2. And when my father went back to do the music Cocoon 2, did I say that right? Cocoon 2? It was written.
Sounds like an African film.
It does. So he did but when the music was written the second time for the second movie, my father could tell was written for him, because he wrote these triplets. I don't know how musically, but he wrote these things that my father does on his own.
Right.
So
he wrote them in.
He
knew
James wrote him in because he wanted him to do that thing that you do, do that thing that you do. But he wrote him in, right? And that's pretty cool.
That's really cool.
That's the ultimate compliment.
Yeah, artistically speaking.
I mean,
it's like, here's where Chevy Chase falls in my movie.
Right, exactly. You're talking elite peers, and they know what you do, and they need it. So, like, we want you to. This is you. Go ahead and do you. Yeah, that's incredible.
So let's talk about Now, this is what I appreciate about you sitting down with us tonight. You don't have any more promoting to do.
Oh, no, I do.
Yeah.
I mean, the film.
Wishful thinking.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, here's Magnolia picked it up, and I'm thrilled for that because they seem to be, everybody says, when you talk to certain, even theaters, say, what do you think of Magnolia Pictures? They have high regards. They do some great films. They release a lot of great films, and they seem very honest, which is great. But my concern is I can't let my guard down. And I know my wife's saying, you're going to have to give it up. I said, I understand that, but I still have to make those phone calls. I still have to make sure that, I give my best shot at it because this is
And you are still the face of the film.
I am still the face of the film. And at the end, I can only try to make the most of every screening. My feeling is like, okay, you know what? What if we do that one phone call or that one interview? That brought in 5 more people. Those 5 people turn around, it multiplies.
Right.
They'll, like today, we have 30 people in today's screening, the afternoon. Not much, but those 30 people will tell people.
Yeah. You got 30 enthusiastic people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't walk out of here. No one walks out, do they? You've seen it a few times.
Yeah.
People walk out, go, oh my God.
Yeah.
It's excellent.
No, there's no apathy.
The greatest compliment, they're so great, is when you get usually it's a musician's wife or girlfriend that's been dragged to this thing.
Right.
It's like,
Right.
they don't want to be
Not
here.
your audience.
It's not my audience. It's like a music
like I'm
doc.
the easy win. I
Yeah,
brought
you're right.
Pete.
Right. You guys are easy. But it's like someone that's going to come in and is like, oh, God, I'm going to support my mate. All right. I'm going to go. It's a music doc. Great. And they come up to me and go, I did not want to come here. And I'm so glad I did.
Wow.
That's the greatest compliment because it's not about the music. Like the other line I said, you had the Pones.
Been waiting.
The other line was when Plaz Johnson, I said, what is it like? You guys, how did it affect your personal lives? You were gone all the time. You were working all around the clock, sometimes midnight sessions. And he paused and he says, I'm a better grandfather than I was a father.
Yeah.
Now, again, it as a father. As a father, what it takes. What are you guys doing tonight? Where's your kids tonight?
Yeah, we're hustling.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We all know we give up something when we do our job.
Right.
And we have to decide, and this film has taken a toll on me, in a sense, and I didn't know sometimes where to pull back. But I always felt like I got to get this thing out. And I know there's moments where you go, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't have been here this weekend.
Yeah.
Maybe I should have stayed home but
Damn it, I could adjust.
but you could just go with it. And that's the thing is like we all do. You could be a carpenter. You could be a plumber. You could be the postman. Well, maybe the postman goes home every day. He knows.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? We're in all that situation right now.
Yep.
But
Tell us how old your kids are.
15, she'll be 16, and I have a 9-year-old.
16 and 9. So the reality is that
They only
all
know Dad.
your kids
All
know.
they know is Daddy does Wrecking Crew, and they
right.
Wow.
They got to realize Daddy does other things too.
Yeah.
You know what they're also going to realize, though, and I hope you realize this too. You are a man of destiny. To truly find your destiny, to figure out what it was that you were meant to do, is an incredible thing. And this is. It's a career-long thing you've done right here.
Well, that's the problem. That is a problem.
No, it is not.
Yes or not?
It is absolutely fantastic.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, listen, I laugh because, what I was saying earlier in that audience, like, I wanted to be a writer.
Yeah.
I wasn't a writer because I'm no more of a writer than I was ever going to be a musician. More of a writer than a musician because I didn't practice. A writer writes every day.
Yeah. Right.
Someone that does something does it every day and makes it. What someone said, I read somewhere, was it 10,000 hours to be something?
That's right.
Yeah.
What is it?
Malcolm Gladwell there. Right?
Is that what it is?
Right.
Yeah.
10,000
To
hours
achieve mastery.
Yeah.
Well, I feel I did that on this film.
Yep. No kidding.
And as I said to someone, I said, if I had done 50% practicing a guitar, I would be a hell of a guitar player. But as my friend said, yeah, but you'd be out of work like the rest of us.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's true.
Man.
But
There's only one thing I can think of that I do every day, and nobody's going to pay me for that.
I'd be a rich man. I'm hoping we're talking about the same thing. What was it? Father Sarducci, I think we had a joke about that, like a nickel every time you masturbated or something.
Yeah.
You got some great joke.
I love Father.
You're going to leave us
gave
without
the
a
ending- I gave the
leave us
ending.
without a punchline on that one.
No, you don't need a punchline. It's just like you got
Everybody
debt.
listening to this podcast, just imagine the mountain of nickels.
I can't remember the joke. I just remember the payoff.
Yeah.
You know what? Father Guido
Getting his son-
Sarducci is part of the
getting
joke. I mean, what a
It was
character.
basically he gets to St. Peter or something like, and you were, he had so much money to start with, and but they took away.
All right. We're
never
going to have to
mind.
look that up. That's
Yeah.
worth looking up.
What were we talking
But
about?
I was
the thing. Yes, you're right about the
destiny.
destiny or whatever. I hope it's a destiny. And the biggest, the concern, sometimes people said, you know what? There was a couple, filmmakers, people out there that would say, hey man, congrats, you did it. I said, I didn't do shit. I haven't done anything. This is years ago. No, but you finished it. You did really. I said, well, great. But you know what? It doesn't mean shit if I just finished it. Big deal. I got to get this thing out there.
Yeah.
And my biggest problem was I put everything into this. When I say I did all the things you're not supposed to do.
Everything.
I did flipping credit cards.
Yeah.
I'm doing another one this week. I'm going, oh God, I hope this one works.
Yeah.
Doing the financing, the mortgage and this and that, borrowing. And because you cross a line, you go, well, what do I do?
Yeah.
Right.
If I don't finish it,
Yeah.
if I don't go to the finish line, we have nothing.
All in is all in.
Yeah.
Right.
It no longer matters. This
No,
has to
and that's the
happen.
thing. It's
Right.
a big deal. I, made a film, went really well, and into the film festivals, into all this. Well, guess what? I could walk away with all the awards. What's that do me? Doesn't do me shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now I got to the point where I have to show this has legs,
Yeah.
and that's where I'm more proud of is the fact that all those people that said it would never sell because it was too niche. Well, guess what? Watch. I've seen this film play around the world.
Yeah.
I've seen it
And
play.
you've seen the reactions.
You've
seen
been
it
in all the
the
niches.
emotions.
I've done everything. And
Yeah.
the thing is, I go to these cities, from Athens, Georgia to Barcelona, Spain to, Bellingham, Washington. I see the same reaction. Israel. It's just it may be a different audience, but they all know the music.
Right.
This is America's greatest export,
Yeah.
and
I heard you telling some folks outside that England knows our music better than we do.
they do.
And we see that all the time. I mean, they
All the
just
time.
are students of the music that we take for granted.
Right. I mean, when I was living in England, it was early 80s. And I remember going to a club, it was called the Hacienda. It was a very famous club in Manchester. And he actually made a movie of it. And the club was, filled with punkers. It was just filled with all that, just drugs and punks and everything else. And it was a good time and bad time. It was the worst of England we were really having a tough time.
Denny knows where to find the party.
Yeah, I
This
did.
is what I'm finding.
But what was interesting is the song at the time was a Nina Simone song.
Wow.
And it was like from the 60s, but they were playing it as if it's the first time they heard it.
Yeah.
And it's in the club.
Wow.
In the club. And I'm going, there's no way this could ever play at
This
home.
is a time warp. Yeah.
This is no way they could have played this in a club in Los Angeles or New York, with our age group at that time.
Yeah.
And when I went back recently, the DJs are using, 45s. They'd be going to clubs and be using, 45, and LPs and stuff. And they're playing stuff from like B-sides of stuff like Dave Axelrod and all these things from Capitol Records that no one here knows.
Wow.
Lee Hazelwood's king over there.
Huh.
The stuff from, So America is spoiled. We do, I don't think look inside too much.
Yeah. And appreciate what we've got
Appreciate it.
as well
Yeah.
as everybody else.
So,
We drive forward a lot too, where we just go right by things that are truly gems, and
yeah, and we're lucky.
Yeah.
You're right. We do have some of the greatest talent and some of the greatest opportunities and this and that. And, I just, I think that's what the thing is. Someone said, why should, these, it's discouraging. It's really encouraging. Let's go to the positive. It's really encouraging when I see someone. I remember in Rochester, New York, this kid came. He was 15 years old. He was the first in line. And where's your parents? Waiting for his parents. He said,
Yeah.
I came alone.
I came
Like,
alone.
oh my God, this is like Rochester, New York. I said, well, how do you know about this? He was a student. he knew all about it. He studied, he was into it. And the same thing is, like I say, if you're into painting, if you're you got to know Monet and Picasso and Michelangelo. You got to know all the artists. Well, this is a time period that is special, will never come back.
Very special.
Yep.
Right.
Because this is when those guys needed to be there because the other guys couldn't do it. And it wasn't until the late 60s when bands could play their own stuff. You had Led Zeppelin, you had these groups doing their, Crosby, Stills and Nash doing their own stuff.
Well, it swayed to the older bands too. I mean, Crosby, Stills and Nash, Buffalo Springfield, and
right.
Those guys were older, and there was a time, and when we watched all of the acts that were in the Wrecking Crew, they were young acts, and that was a time for youthful music where the voices were youthful, and they still had to be efficient and effective in the studio.
And that it's a new way of doing it, but that still exists, like with boy bands and the packaged artists that they have.
Absolutely.
They're not doing the musical part of it. They're doing the performance piece of it. So it still exists. It's just they don't have your dad in a room.
Yeah, it just exists a little differently now.
On a computer, and there's one dude doing it.
Well, that was the other thing we talked about in the Q&A tonight. People realize how music was done then. They had to be in the room together.
Right.
Now you don't have to be in the room together.
Right.
And unfortunately, what happens is those people don't influence each other. They don't.
There's a collaboration dynamic.
When you grow up playing drums, you play with people.
Right.
Right.
Maybe you didn't, but I don't know.
Just because there's certain things we don't do with people.
Okay. Well, I mean, if you do it every day, you practice every day by yourself. I don't know what you're doing.
Right.
But
it's true. Yeah, that goes away.
Because now you're playing in the computer, you're playing the tracks. I mean, how many kids probably they could go to music school and never played with anybody before.
Yeah,
right.
It is the musical equivalent of masturbation.
And then that takes away from your dad's 30%.
You talking about jazz? No.
That takes away from your dad's 30% that he could give because he and his peers can't be in the same room expanding that envelope. The envelope is set. This is the package right here. Please fill in your portion of the package.
Yeah, it's funny because I talk to session players. My brother's a engineer. He does orchestras and all that stuff. And I'll say, "Who was the guitar player in the orchestra?" He said, "There was none." He says, "Sometimes they'll just bring them in alone now." Sometimes the guitar players nowadays, they don't even see anybody.
Right.
They're just doing an overdub. It's really interesting, and that's with orchestras.
Right.
So it's just really, you don't have that feeling of.
It's one of the things that's changed that has there's a sadness about the lessening, the diminishing of the collaboration. I mean, the things change, and some things get better, and as some things get better, you leave some things.
It's like back to Hollywood. When I was there, it was horrible.
Yeah.
In the 40s, it was awesome.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty cool now again.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that music is the same way. And I think music, listen, we talked about that earlier. I'm not a musician, but, people always gripe, they don't make music like they used to. You know what?
That's bullshit.
Music is bullshit.
That's bullshit.
Because music is music. It's just you got to get through a lot of crap to see. And it's no different then. There was a lot of crap in the 60s and 70s and 80s. And don't say there wasn't.
No, there was.
Because we could make we could make that compilation.
Oh, man.
That's true. And the thing about where your dad was back then there were gatekeepers, and there's good and bad to having gatekeepers. The good is, if you get through the gatekeepers, you got to be pretty darn good.
Yeah.
So the stuff that you could go into a record store and buy had to have achieved some level of quality.
Right. Well, we think, yeah.
But nowadays everybody has a home studio, so there's a whole glut of shit you have to dig through before you get to something that's, that's good. And that doesn't mean there's not good stuff.
No, I think there is good stuff. And we were saying that, it's like I said, in 1965, when I'm grown up and my dad's doing all that stuff, if as kids, we're listening. If you went back 50 years to 1915, what are we listening to? The earliest thing I remember listening to as kids, my parents' music was the big bands.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right. So that's 30s and 40s.
Right.
There's really not
much before that.
No. And technology. Now our kids, your kid's 17, my kid's 16. they have all of our stuff and more, and their stuff.
And you don't have to be proficient at a guitar to play it and make music. You can now make music with the computer, not touch an instrument.
Yeah.
And you're right about that music from 1915. Name something. What was it? Ragtime? What was the music of that era?
Yeah.
Go back 50 years further back. Music is different. Always has been, always will be. And it'll continue to be consumed in some way.
And it's just a matter of trying to find what is, oh my God, there is a Lennon, John Lennon. There is a John Williams or a Paul McCartney. There are brilliant musicians out there.
Right.
There's just so much content.
Yep.
There's
I
almost
heard
impossible.
recently that it takes us now 2 weeks to create the amount of content that existed between the dawn of time and 1974.
Yeah.
Wow,
It
that's
takes
amazing.
us 2 weeks now
Wait a minute. Say that.
to create that. So if you capture all of the intellectual material that was created between the beginning of humanity and 1974.
Now every 2 weeks now we have that much.
Every 2 weeks.
It's funny because I remember someone said it would the New York Times was as much information, Sunday New York Times, as something that in the 1400s.
Sure.
And in terms of knowledge and stuff, and it's really extraordinary. And like you said, that's crazy.
Let's talk for a minute about what you've done to promote the film, raise money, because
I had to come up with ideas.
You've been on the hustle.
Yeah, I had to come up. I mean, there was a point where it's like I said earlier, no one was going to touch this film. No one was going to touch it because it was going to cost them money to make money, and they could not do it because there was so much. If they're going to spend $750,000 on the music or whatever, let's say $500,000,
right?
It's a documentary. That means they're going to have to put another $250,000, $300,000, who knows how much more.
Sure.
Let's bring it up to $1 million now. No documentary, very few documentaries ever make $1 million. That's the fact. I mean, it's a small minority. So you're going against everything already.
You're swimming upstream.
Exactly. So it's going to take a long time. So that's the only way was I'm going to have to pay all this off. So we would do is we did like the donations, $5, whatever. Everybody jumped in. And then we started doing screenings. I would go to local screenings. I would four-wall it, rent a place. Hey, let me show you this. We'd get donations, whatever, sell tickets. But then I was doing is I would go to a town anywhere. It could be Washington and say, listen, I'll go to a music store. I'll go wherever. I'll give you 10 tickets for $500. Put your name up on the screen before your name's up on the DVD, and you use those 10 tickets to your clients. So that started working. That money on sponsorship money helped us pay for the travel. So that was really working well. And then the tickets, would start paying off the licensing, and that's how we kept going. Is this working?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I've seen that, though. I've seen it work really well.
Yeah.
We had an event in Benicia that your sister
that was our favorite. That was our
really knocked out.
John was there at the.
That
this
thing
is
was
my
awesome.
favorite. This is where stupidity and genius works together, or it doesn't work. I don't know what you want to call it. So my sister says, "Hey, I really want to show the screening. I really want to have a screening up here with the film." I said, "All right." I said, and she goes, "Let's do it at the high school." I said, "Well, if we do it at the high school, let's do it for the high school. You know what I mean? Let's do it for the band." And she says, "All right." So they have a beautiful theater there. It's like 400-seater.
Yeah, it's
beautiful
nice.
room, auditorium. So I said, "Well, let's do it there." So she goes to the band and she goes, she wants to do this. I said to my sister, I said, "Here's the thing, though. I'm tired." I said, we do have an audience, and I will promote the shit out of this thing.
Right.
But let them, if there's 60 kids, let them all sell 2 tickets each. That's 120. It's a third of, or a quarter of what we need to fill the place. We'll do the rest.
Right.
And the band turns it down.
Wow.
You know what? Let me just interject because my son goes to that high school, and I don't know what the hell the band was thinking. I love school music. I love school. I was a band nerd myself, so I want the band to succeed.
All right, we all do.
And I'm all for it.
Hey, listen, I'm sorry, I wasn't in the band. I was a banner carrier. But that's another story. Go on.
Well, what I'm saying is my son is a baseball player.
Right.
And when he gets 10 tickets, they say, here's your 10 tickets. We could give a shit what you do with them. Give us our $500.
Okay.
And
I didn't know that.
And to a player, every one of us goes, well, here I go. And we'll go sell the tickets.
It's Almond Roca. That's what we did.
Do whatever, whatever it is. But the first thing is we're giving you 10 tickets and we need a check for $500.
Right.
And that's not necessarily the dollar amount. Maybe it's $200.
Right.
But here's the 10 tickets.
Right. And these
guess what? You sold them.
And guess what? These tickets were $20.
Right.
Yeah.
And the thing, and so when she got turned down, and they said, well, we can't ask our band members to do that because we have so much on the...
I'm calling bullshit.
Because,
like I said, my son goes to that school, and every one of those activities says, here's your 10 tickets.
Well,
Thank you very much.
This sounds like a bitch session, which is nice.
Yeah.
But it was like, it's like, all right, fine. All right.
Yeah.
So then my sister,
So
God
the
bless
band,
her.
God damn it, I'm pissed off about this,
Good.
Denny. I am pissed because we went through I was on the phone with your sister, and I said,
Oh, that's
so
right. You
did
were
talk
part
to
of that.
I was, and I said, did you talk to the band director? And she said, yeah. He said, no. And I said, what in the fuck? He said, no. This is the movie about music.
Yeah, it's about it's so she comes back and she says, I'm going to ask the cheerleader squad. I said, go for it.
Yeah.
Someone wants that.
So then we get this
Guess
is
who
awesome.
makes things happen at that
So
school?
the cheerleaders, all of a sudden, we have a cheerleading squad outside, welcoming people.
Right.
They're
So when
doing
we walked into
cheers.
the lobby, Pete, we were surrounded by cheerleaders.
It's hilarious.
It was awesome.
And they're doing Rockin' Robin. They're doing cheers to Wrecking Crew songs.
That's fantastic.
And this is the thing that the band could have done. They could have played some songs.
They could have had
you know
the
what?
jazz band
Right.
open up and do a set before the film. They could
I
have
hate to be bad mouthing this, but in the end,
Yeah.
the cheerleaders made $4,000.
Well,
That's a lot of pom poms.
That is a lot of pom
But
poms,
that was-
or a
but-
lot of drumsticks, or a lot of
That's right.
reeds for a whatever.
But that's the kind of thing is like what I've been trying to do is involve. If
Sure.
I can share, it's great.
Yeah.
Helps me. It helps them, and the thing is like I want to involve. The greatest thing is involving people. When I go to different cities, I've met so many cool people because this music's touched so many cool, it's really cool people.
It's part of our lives.
It is a thing that connects any of us. I mean, we can go out into the parking lot after the screening and meet 20 strangers,
Right.
and we all know each other.
Did you know? I don't remember if we said it. This newscast. Hello, newscast.
By the way, your film is playing outside. We're in the dressing room, and your film is playing outside.
Do we know where we are?
No.
Did you?
We're at Solano Community College.
Where are we at in the film, I think
Yeah.
you're talking about.
But I
Oh,
know
I'm
where we
sorry.
are at Solano College.
Yes, this is where we are. But the film is playing outside, and I just hollered, "God damn it, I'm fucking pissed, and this is bullshit," or whatever. So I hope that
hold on.
didn't-
Let's be quiet for a second. Let me hear where we are in the film. Okay, I think we're okay.
All right.
I think we get 10 more minutes.
Do you know the film well enough
I
to
think
hear where we are?
I kind of
Okay.
heard intonation.
Just making sure.
So the best thing, we were talking about the dedications of the songs, right?
Right.
All right. So people would dedicate songs to their loved ones, to their parents, or the whatever. It was
Yeah.
"Be My Baby," all these beautiful songs. So the one song, there were two recently. This one song, I said, "Oh, no one's dedicated Gary Lewis and the Playboys." I went, doing the "Everybody Loves a Clown." I
Right.
thought, I'm running out of time because I'm thinking this film's going to come out and no one's dedicated that song. I'm thinking, and I would go through these songs going, well, there's only one place to go, clown school.
Right.
So I literally cold called a clown school and I sent the guy a note and I said, listen, and he goes, this is an awesome pitch. I love it. And he
Yeah.
gave. And the greatest
Wow.
thing is I was so thrilled about that because A, it's so funny,
Yeah.
but it's so true.
It's so true.
And his what do you call it? Dedication was everybody loves a clown, or no, everybody is a clown.
Everybody
Not
is a
everybody
clown.
loves a clown. Everybody is a clown.
Everybody
is a clown.
Okay.
And
Wow.
It's true.
and it's just fun. It's thinking outside the box. I did this with CDs before we did this. My brother and I had a compilation company. We do promotional CDs. Give away CDs. I'll put your name on this thing. I mean, I like marketing. I like trying to figure out how to. I don't like selling.
Right.
That's someone else that could do that.
It's funny that you say that because you've had to do a sales job on this film for the last 18 years.
I guess I'm not that good then.
You've had to do a sales
18
job.
years. Someone said, "Man, you really made a great film." Yeah, you take 18 years. You better.
Wow.
Yeah.
But
it is a
Man,
great
you
film,
really
though.
put this into perspective. We're all
I'm such a,
complimentary about, like,
I know,
man,
I'm
this
such a
thing's awesome.
downer.
Yeah,
I'm such
it's
a,
18 years, man.
no, but I mean, listen, I'm glad I did it the way, I look at it and go, I'm very proud. And I'm very proud of when I see cuts and go, God, my editor, she did such a great job.
Well, it's tough to follow in the footsteps of a guy like Tommy Tedesco. I mean, your dad was a legend. He was a great. And when you grow up and you don't really, see that, you see Dad and he goes to work.
Yeah.
And then you find that out through the making of this film. But I think what you've done now is you've created in your legacy the perpetuation of the great story of a tremendous number of guys and one lady. Yeah. And you've preserved that story, but I mean, really, we only need to look and in 18 years of doing it, and of course, this is a time capsule picture. I mean, this is going to go in the archives, and
well, I'm very thrilled and very lucky. I was the one that did it. I mean, lucky I was in the right place at the right time, but I was the only one that did it.
Yeah.
And when I got these guys, Glenn Campbell,
nobody else could have done it though.
No, and someone might have done, but they would not have.
Not with the perspective that you.
And you couldn't have got him now. It's over.
No, as I said earlier, I said, God bless Glenn. You could never get Glenn now. And when I got Glenn, there was a problem.
Wow.
That was 12, 14 years ago. Whenever I did him, and I knew there was something going on there. And same thing with the rest of them. Brian is Brian.
Yeah.
But all the rest of them was like you ask someone a question now, they're 84. It's different. You know what it's like at 84 versus 64.
Right.
Yeah.
Never mind if there's an illness or anything. It's just the being at 84.
Yeah. I mean, look at me. I'm 53, and when I started this, I was 36. I was a lot.
Yeah. My God, you already look like
ask
shit.
me about something from 20 years ago. It's going to be tough to remember all of those things.
Right.
It just.
And that's where the thing is.
And you're 27.
I know. I'm 27.
Well, think about those. That's the thing with these people. It's like, someone said, well, they these guys went to work every day for 10. Let's say my dad was working constantly every day from 61 to into the 80s, but he was doing more than one job a day. He's doing 2, 3, 4 days of dates a day.
Yes.
So and the other thing is they don't know what they're doing because they're recording songs. They're not recording hits.
Right.
Because they don't know it's a hit until a year later.
Right.
Oh, I love the line in the film that it's some people would view the injustice. Like, your dad played on so many hit records. Yeah, but you know what? Guess what? He played on 35,000 people's records that weren't a hit.
Yeah, well, that's what he said. He said, listen,
and he
he
got
says,
paid for all of those.
Yeah, he said that was his thing. He says, people would say, shouldn't you have gotten more money, for, let's say, putting your input? And he says, no. He says, I made hundreds of hits, but I made thousands of bombs.
Yeah.
Now, I never gave back his $25. Anybody his $25.
Right.
It's just what we did.
That's exactly right.
And someone said, well, should he get paid more? And I said, no. What are you going to do? Is like the doctor giving a diagnosis?
Yeah.
Well, I think
Just 'cause he's
for
right
another
this
$35, I'll give you a little more information. No, you're an artist. You give whatever you
give
your
what you
job.
have,
It's like the old job, the old adage is, you got this job. You got to get the next job. Well, what's going to get you the next job is giving your best on this job.
Right.
Yep.
So you're going to give that extra.
And he got to ask for a premium price.
Yeah.
Because he did
Absolutely.
give you that extra. Yeah. So
these guys were double scale, triple scale at times when they could get it. So it's what it was.
So really, what is next for Denny Tedesco?
Denny Tedesco said, take this as long as he can just to get it out there.
Yeah.
I'm going to get this thing, make sure that Magnolia gets my support, and I want to make sure that the music magazines do it. I want to make sure the public gets to hear it. I want it out there, and then I want to move
the world
on.
needs to see it.
Yeah,
Man, I'm gonna admit I'm not bullshitting for the microphone. I've seen this film 4 times, and I cried 4 times.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a powerful movie, and really seriously, from me to you, thank you for making it.
I thank you,
because you took us to Rock and Roll Olympus and showed us around back where the musicians were, and
pulled the curtain back.
Yeah, man, and we.
But what's really cool is they're not that different than any of us.
Yeah.
No, of course not.
Do you know what I mean? And that's the greatest
and that
thing.
was the thing, was the humanity of the picture,
Yeah.
because we're all marveling at, wow, all these great songs and all this.
They're no different than
part of popular culture, but the part that the part that gets you emotionally, that gets me emotionally about the film was, when your shots with your dad at the end. And I'm glad also, by the way, that you put yourself in the movie.
Yeah.
Oh, right, which wasn't supposed to be. Right. Yeah.
But who is walking away with
everybody
the guitar
wants
case?
that. It's my dad.
That is your dad.
That's the video I did.
Nice.
That's to come back to that video in 1986.
Wow.
That's the video of my dad. It's called Impressions of Hollywood Boulevard. That's Hollywood and Vine. That's the store that's below my loft.
Nice.
It was closed.
What an image.
Right, and so it was like at 5:30 in the morning. We, had the TV in the window.
Yeah.
We played back the footage we shot the couple days before, or whatever. So we pull back and watch him look at it and walk away. People always go, "So who's that?"
Who'd you put the hat on?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, no, that's him. It was just
him.
the other great part is, which was an accident, not an accident. It just came years later. Was Elvis? Hello, Zappa.
Yeah.
Oh, man,
People
that was
say,
great.
now Zappa came from an interview in 1983 of a doc we were doing for college. Never went anywhere, did nothing. Went to Zappa's house to talk about Dad, and he said, and we were showing him the Gong Show stuff, and he came back with his, and I thought Zappa was going to be funny. Zappa's not funny. That's not his
He's a
thing.
deep,
He's a
deep
dude.
Yeah.
He's iconic or ironic or whatever you want to call it. It's like, but when he said these words, I'm like, wow, that didn't really help me. 30 years later.
That wasn't what you were going for.
No, but 30 years later, what he
Nailed it.
said, nailed it. It's as if Zappa says, you know what, I won't be here in 30 years. Here, you take this and just hold on to this piece of,
Because he's that deep.
Right. And
Yeah.
you're thinking, oh, man, you asshole. And he's
Yeah.
saying, you're welcome.
Yeah.
And totally. I mean, it's like, because he's talking about, for those, well, they'll see it when they see the film, but he's talking about what the business was like.
Yeah.
Tommy doing it. So, I think I got to go do a Q&A.
Yeah,
I think you gotta
it's
do it.
getting close. Hey, thanks a lot.
Thanks,
man.
guys.
Thank you for everything. Anytime.
It was awesome.
We'd love to have you on the show again.
All right, we'll
Thank
do
you.
it when the film comes out.
Sounds good.
Okay. Awesome.